basically that's all my books nowadays.
Oh man. Oh.
I'd say it looked like a bookshelf just made of boxes.
Yes.
All right. I'm trying to wait for the link to show up in my subscription feed so I can share it. There it is.
The comics are already on the shelves, but all the books are basically just in boxes because I'm waiting to be able to buy the bookshelves.
Do you know what type of bookshelves? Like, are you looking for white, black, wood, horizontal?
I'm gonna get the white billies because I already have that one white billy over there. So I'm thinking I'm getting like a set of like 2 of the regular size and then 1 narrower. And then I will put all the like figurines and like merch and like decorative pieces on the narrow shelf and get like the glass doors for it. Hello.
Hi. Well, welcome everybody who is here for our first ever live show / reading sprints for Releaseathon. You probably know who we are. I'm Kristen. And with me is Rhea from the Bookfinch and Angela from Literature Science Alliance.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Rachel.
Rachel, you're on my buddy read like bucket list. We haven't gotten there yet. I know we don't talk a lot, but you're on my bucket list. Rhea and I still haven't finished our buddy read of Catfishing on Catnet.
I know, I'm so bad. But I promise I will finish it, and because I have the sequel on my e-reader. But every time I get that book, something happens and I'm unable to finish it, and then I have to return it back to the library. Because for some reason it's a popular book and there's always someone wanting to loan it.
I'm then this close to just buying it for you. We're getting to that level. So you're saying if you owned it, and Evie, I support you playing Hades. I think that's good. I was playing Slay the Spire before this. So.
I was just playing Hades earlier. I mean, you can listen to you before you play Hades.
I own Hades on Switch and on PC, and I'm considering buying it on PS4 as well. Just, for the experience.
Part of the reason I went through the effort of getting us a PS5, because we only had a PS3 before that, and so I was like, well, we're not going to get a PS4. I'm going to get us a PS5, was I wanted Hades, which is so dumb, but I don't have a gaming computer, and so I didn't have the video RAM, and it's like, I need a thing to put this game on.
I mean, seriously, I bought Hades for PC because, I love Switch, and I love because you can play it on the go as well. But the problem is that when you have, large mobs in Hades, the Switch will start to really slow down and it can't keep up with the mobs. So it's like you suddenly start to have really janky
lag. Yeah.
Rhea, I play on the Switch and I don't have that problem, but every once in a while my cast doesn't work. Like I'll obtain a cast, the Blade Rift or whatever, and it just won't cast. And it's random. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
That might be a bug. But also you might be just encountering a bug, or you might just it might cast but you don't see it because there's a frame rate issue as well, so that could be a lag time issue as well.
I don't know,
but for me the mobs would just start moving as like this, basically a YouTube video had finished buffering and then skipped to the buffered part.
Yeah, I have been playing this for over a year and I only just beat Hades yesterday.
I mean, I'm really bad at video games and Hades is really helping me get better at video games because there's a lot of reward for death, which I need in my life.
Yes.
The game where it's okay to die.
Yes, I still need the very, very last true ending. Because there's 3 there's the ending when you first finish the game, right? And then you have to go forward so that you can get the true ending. Yep. But then there's another true ending after that true ending. So it's you just have to keep on playing. And even after the true ending, there's apparently some extra stuff that you can
It's
figure
amazing
out.
how much content and story they got in that game. Because I figured,
Yeah.
you know, I think I've done the run like 300 times and I'm still getting new story. I'm like, how is there still more story?
I have approximately just on the PC version, I have approximately 200 hours clocked into that game. And that's not even counting the Switch version, which I have played for longer.
Oh my gosh.
So
But I mean, it's a really good game to play while you listen to an audiobook. I have
yes,
done
and
that
it's
Oh, I can't. I don't have that type of abilities, but I'm proud of you.
I mean, I also like really like playing it when I'm watching BookTube.
Yeah. Fair.
So I just played.
Also, Evie was asking me, Evie, if you want it, I can start Maria Maria right now, but I also have the Bone Orchard that I need to start, so I don't know what to do for these sprints. I don't know what you guys are reading. These are my 2 new Releaseathon books. I'm trying to decide which to start.
Nice.
Also, I'm basically going to work on
Lake Lore.
these two today. I'm thinking of doing like try a chapter and then deciding based on the like, because I haven't started these either
Yeah, I
of
haven't
these
started
yet.
either of these either. Yeah.
I was supposed to start this one earlier, but then things got in the way. So I'm thinking I'm gonna read the first chapters of both and then decide which one I'm going to prioritize for tonight.
Well, I think what'll decide it for me is how long is our first sprint going to be? What are we thinking?
I mean, I don't care. I was thinking maybe 30 minutes, 20 minutes, something not too long.
I'm personally always like wanting like not a too long sprint for the first one, but also not too short. So maybe like split it in the middle and do it like 20.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Then let me
But
look and
like,
see how
since
long
you're
this
reading
one chapter is.
I just finished KKU 2 and it was fantastic. So I'm glad you enjoyed it too.
I
finished
finished Strange and Stubborn Endurance yesterday. It was so good.
Nice.
I've only read 2 new releases this month so far, but
I'm just looking into this book, and this presentation in Lake Lore is just gorgeous. Like there's butterfly prints and everything. Like
every Anna Marie McLemore book I've picked up are always such stunning productions. I always want to own
yes,
them all. I always do.
I've read Wild Beauty, which is still like one of my favorite books of all time. Like it is so good. And I've also read Blanca y Roja, which was so great as well.
I
And I
regretted not
need to
reading
read
Blanca y
more.
Roja in the fall because it's such a fall book.
It's like for some reason, even though like A.M. McLemore has this thing that they write very different things every time, but I always find something like the core theme of the story to be something that I really relate to. Like in Wild Beauty, the whole bisexual yearning and like this whole like disaster by energy. And also in Blanca y Roja, that whole like sister dynamic, like there's something always there that is like, oh, that hits so close to home.
No, I think I read the first, I think in theory, maybe their least favorite considered work, like not them as the author, but like people who read their works. Dark and Deepest Dread was my first one, and I loved it. But so many people apparently didn't like it as much as the other stuff. I'm like, if this is the lowest, I don't even know.
I feel like what was the Weight of Feathers? The Weight of
That was
Feathers,
their
which is their
debut.
first like debut. I think that one is like the least liked.
I think
From
maybe the
what
people
I
I
understand.
follow discovered it recently and have all been loving it. So I think it's one of those, you know, how books have waves of people loving or not loving them.
I'm also thinking that because they probably know that it's a debut, they probably like are not judging it as critically as if it were like a new release.
I haven't heard of that one.
Nope, don't know anything about that. But even though I actively try to stay up to date on new things, there's so many. There's just so many. Like I actively commit like 10 to 15 hours of my week looking in like my month into looking into new releases for a video on my channel, and I still like
I mean, Angela, I do that as well, and also I follow comics and manga releases as well, and I sometimes I'm wondering how the hell am I even keeping up because it's like a lot.
I
I
don't
think I've
recognize this
decided I
one
will
either.
read The Bone Orchard. Sorry, what did you say, Kristen?
Oh, I said I don't recognize this one either. I'm like looking it up right now. I recognize the author, but I don't remember.
Oh, see, I don't even recognize the author. I'll look up a cover.
Yeah.
Oh, the thing itself. It doesn't even show me a cover right away. How? What? I see SFF 180's review of it. That showed up in images. It
Well,
came out in
yeah.
2015.
The cover is like black and white, I guess.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of like snow or noise.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm in Goodreads and I'm typing in reading sundial. I'm like realizing sundial is the title, not reading sundial.
And also in Goodreads, unless you type it in exactly, it's not a very favorable search engine.
It is a terrible, terrible platform.
Apparently, they're rolling out a new version of it, and I've yet to
there's
see
the
it.
beta. And from what I've heard from friends who are in the beta isn't much better.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like they have not, in fact, in the new beta version, done anything of note to improve the search function. So,
Which, like, in a
Still
world where I
continue
know
to
how
work
good we can be with strings
poorly.
in coding, I'm like, how is this so hard? Like,
I think it's not a money maker. I think they just don't care to invest in it. They're like, it's good enough and it's not going to get better.
Like, Amazon bought it because it was viewed it as a competitor and wanted to put in their ads for their like Kindle Unlimited stuff, etc. And probably do some functionality later with like featuring shops that could take you to the like Kindle store or something. But I don't think Amazon is putting any money towards developing Goodreads. The only reason the like new beta version even came about was because people were starting to leave the platform for Storygraph.
Well, I don't think it was because of how the page looked. But I actually don't mind the beta version. I hated it at first, but then I got used to it. So I don't know.
I mean, I feel like the beta version is just the old version, but with rounded out graphics.
Yeah.
I'm so
By the way,
happy.
Ron, I was looking up Sundial. It looks really interesting. How far are you? Is it good? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
My friend Jocelyn read it recently, and she found it engaging. I don't know if she loved it, but it like had a hook that kept her engaged in the story. Also, I'm so happy. Didn't you just start this yesterday? Also, like, I mean, impressive. It's a 500-page book, though. But it is like a fantasy romance, and like, if I hadn't had to read other things, I could have like finished it in a weekend easy. So, oh, it's so good.
Oh yeah, I'm just now processing this, Rachel. Sorry. I think it's not beta anymore. I think they're making the change.
They're actually rolling it out. I just don't have access anymore. I would like to see it, but I can't if they refuse. And I'm like, I can
Yeah, no, me too. Yeah.
But I mean, I won't care that much because I actually only go on Goodreads when I'm searching for books, which doesn't really matter to me how they choose to. It doesn't matter to me. I don't.
Same.
I
I mean, to be fair, I also go there to like run my book club
That's
from time
fair.
to time, but that's like the only thing I go there for.
I am chronically behind at putting my reviews up. I think I haven't put a review up on any platform besides my channel since March, and I really need to get on that because it's going to start getting to the point where I can't even catch up if I do like a review a day.
I feel like nowadays the only times where I actually put up a Goodreads review is if there was something in the book that I absolutely loathed, that I feel like it is my due diligence to warn other people who might be upset about similar things.
Yeah, I don't know. And then like Goodreads has such a weird thing where like people ask to be your friend or to follow you, but they don't make it easy for you to accept it. It's very weird. Goodreads is an odd like social media
You have to keep
platform.
Yeah.
Like I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
So, will we start the first sprint?
Yeah, I want to see if I like this book.
Yeah. So what are you guys reading?
The Bone Orchard by Sarah
Lake
Miller.
Lore by A.M. McLemore.
I think I'm going to be reading The Bruising of Keeler. I'm going to see if I can finish it today in our
But
sprint.
look at this. It has like butterflies.
I know the books are always so pretty.
Like
Aw.
there's butterflies on every when the POV changes.
That's awesome.
It's great.
No, I still have my digital galley of that one I want to read. But I read Blanca y Roja earlier. I need to read more of them though.
Yeah. By the way, if you are viewing this, definitely drop in the comments what you're reading today and any progress you've made so far in New Releaseathon with what you have already
I'm
read.
Joey, and I'm one of the
Alright.
30 AI voices from SpeechLab. You listened to this video until now, and you probably couldn't.
There's like you can mute the video forever with the thing at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Sometimes I even auto mute if I know for a longer period that it's just like a timer thing or a video that I don't need to listen to.
For the longest time, I didn't even use timers because I was too lazy to learn how to do it, and so I would just have banners running.
Banners are also a good thing. Like for example, reading in progress until this and this time.
Yep.
Another one I basically use like Windows timers. So wait a minute. I think I could also share my screen if we want to use like a timer because I'm running Windows. So
Hang on, I got it working, guys. I was using a YouTube video and I had an ad, which was really annoying. So now I'm.
Ooh, the Wayspring arrives. That sounds fun.
oh, my influence.
I want to read that. If I didn't already own a new short story collection of this year, I would have gotten it. But I realized Evie sent me this, and I'm like, I want to read this.
I actually I read it on ebook, and now I actually want to own it physically. So I'm probably trying
It's
to
a really
find
pretty
a
book.
physical copy. It is, and it was such a good collection. I want to be able to go and underline and do all the things.
Especially with the essays, I assume.
Mm.
All right.
I'm sorry, my internet's being super slow. I don't know what's. Come on. There we go.
Internet be that way.
Yeah. Okay.
The collection
Okay.
Evie is The Wayspring Arrives. That's the one we were talking about.
All right. I'm just gonna mute myself for the duration
here.
of the reading.
It's not working. Yeah, it's working now. Okay.
gonna keep dancing.
Well,
I read a chapter.
I read a few chapters of both of these. They are very different.
Well, yeah.
This is actually very interesting. Like, I'm not sure um, if I'm going to actually continue with this one to see if I'm gonna like it. Um, because sometimes like it takes a moment with Finnish books to actually like get the like plot going. With this, I feel like I already know, like with the I got to like a two point of views of both of the main characters, and I already kind of feel like I know what this story is going to like, what the vibe is going to be. With this, I don't know what the hell the vibe is going to be.
What is the title? What's
Um,
the translation of the title, I guess?
the title would translate to Birds of the Valley and Songs of the Song of the Sea, or Song of the like a vast lake. Like Ava is basically a horizon on the water.
Hmm.
Like it's like and it's also a name of a woman, but so far a woman by the name of Ava hasn't been introduced. But it could mean both of those things. I feel like it might actually mean like it's sort of like a pun. That it's a name. It's gonna be a named character, but also like
But it has a metaphor or simile
yeah.
attached to it or something. Yeah.
Basically, for now it has introduced like three separate point of view characters, and each of them has like an animal spirit inside them, which is like very reminiscent of like, it's basically like a ancient Finnish mythology. And in Finnish mythology, basically each living creature has an inner power, or what we call väki, and and you can also kind of like be spiritually aligned with an animal spirit in a sense, or that you kind of get your personality, or like the type of person you are comes from that animal spirit that has touched you in a
Oh,
sense.
okay.
So that's interesting, because this is the first book that I've read in a long time that has kind of had this kind of theming around like very strong ties to that specific Finnish mythology.
Nice. Does it have an English translation, or is it only in Finnish right now?
Right now only in Finnish. This came out this year, so it's
Okay.
like it's been out for like 3 months or so. So I'm hoping that I mean, this is the like, it's not the only reason why I always like, why I try to read more Finnish books and also talk about Finnish books, but I'm kind of like entertaining this idea that if someone hears of a Finnish book and they have some connection somewhere, they can pitch it to for someone to get like translation rights and stuff, or like even if they just see it and get intrigued, you know.
Yeah.
Also, I
Can't
was
hear you. I think you're muted.
I think, was Rachel the one that was just talking about these prisoning hills, or was it Angela? It sounds so familiar, but I'm curious about it. I'm curious what you'll think of it when you're done.
I haven't read anything with hills in the title, so.
Okay, so it must have been Rachel. I think it was Rachel. Nice. Wow, 3 chapters.
Nice.
I only read like Let the Mountains Be My Grave, so mountains are like big hills, right?
Yeah, basically.
It's very different. Like, I walk up a hill to come home, and you hike a mountain. Like, it's a different activity. There are different shoes.
Oh no, Ron.
Oh, no, I think
Different.
I only read I don't even know. I think I only read 14 pages of mine. So, Vanished Birds.
Yeah, I
How did
only
you
read
play
about.
babies and read that? Have you guys read The Vanished Birds?
Yeah.
I have not. I have had it 2 times from the library, and then I didn't get to it. which is a problem. I always tend to loan out, like, the volume I loan library books in is larger than the volume I manage to finish and read them. Which makes me think that loaning out library books is a different hobby from reading library books.
It is how I do what people do when they buy books without spending money. Like, that is
Yes.
how I do the equivalent that other people do.
Same. Except I
Yeah.
also unfortunately buy things.
Yeah, no, I love the feeling of going to the library and coming back home with a big stack of books. It makes me feel so wealthy. Like, look at all of this wealth I am holding.
Yes. And also I think it's like a risk-free way to like try out new things. I feel like I have from the
Yeah,
library I
exactly.
have tried out definitely way more new things than what I've actually bought, because when I buy a book, I usually don't, for example, buy books outside of my comfort genres. Whereas from the library, I will just pick whatever.
Yeah, it's just nice to hold them. Have either of you read The Bone Orchard or heard anything about it?
I have heard about it, but I haven't read it. I kind of like was interested in it, and then I saw reviews, and then I was like, oh no, is this going to be what happened with a Far Wilder Magic, where I listen to the hype, pick it up, and then I'm sorely disappointed?
Well, it depends on what was the reason why you lost interest, I guess, is probably the main reason, right? Like,
Yeah.
I picked it up because I heard that it's a confusing narrative structure and confusing premise. Like, that's why I'm picking it up. But I mean, that's not everyone's buzzword. That's just like me. And it is confusing-ish. Like, our main character kind of puts parts of her personality into these like bone creatures that she animates and runs a brothel. So that's all I know. And there's a prince who has anger issues.
Now I kind of want to read it again. Like, this hasn't been pitched to me that way.
That's the first chapter. I don't know what's on the back of the book or the flap. I'm just telling you what I've read in the first chapter. Our lady, she had her different personalities are like pride, pain, shame, justice, charm, or something else.
So is
And
this
it's
like
very obvious that this is how she's coping with some mental health stuff in her fantastic life as kind of like the emperor's consort / running a brothel situation. But the empress has just called her for a secret meeting. And I'm like, but why? So I don't know what's happening.
Interesting. Now I need to see if my library has it.
fantasy horror?
I would say it's probably darker fantasy, especially because I have to assume this is going to delve into discussion of trauma and recovery of that and dealing with that. But I don't think it's spooky horror. Like, I don't think it's scary horror, but everyone's definition of horror is different.
My
It
library
has
has it.
bones.
It indeed has it. There are
I'm doing an immersion read because I
copies.
think the prose wasn't working super well for where my brain's at today, so I'm listening to it while reading it because it's not good enough for me to just listen to because it's a little too confusing for that.
So funnily, my library has 2 copies of The Bone Orchard, and there are 9 holds for it. So I might get it in like a couple of months if I put in a hold right now.
But again,
We've
don't
all done
blame me if you read it and don't like it because I've only read 14 pages.
No, I will blame myself for not trusting my original intuition, just like I did with Far Wilder Magic.
So when I was a young adult and kid, I was super good at using libraries. And, well, I grew up next door to a library, which is great. But then, like, even as a young adult, when I moved to this city, I did it so well. But then after I had kids and got a job, I would do this all the time. I would go borrow books and then never have the time to go back to the library and accrue massive fines. So now I do digital library stuff at this point.
I wonder, so with the pandemic, a lot of the libraries stopped doing fines. They didn't even have like due dates, but now the due dates are back, but there's still no more fines.
I think a lot of libraries are doing that.
Well, I think even my grandma's local library, 'cause she's in a very small town, they realized they cost them more money to process and do fines, like to pay someone it's your job to like do all this stuff for fines than to just like not have the like, because it's usually only like $2 a book or $5, at least in Boston. Like there is a maximum fine you can have per book. Unless
Here
you
it is. Here it is, 20 cents per day.
Yeah, it's something cents per day until you hit a certain dollar amount, which I think is $5 or $7 per book. And I
I
think it's more if you lose it. Like if you don't
I
return the book, period, that's a different thing.
I don't remember what the cap over here is, if it's like 10 euros or something, but at some point you will get a notice from the library saying that if you either don't return the book, or depending on if you have like persisting fines, or if you have a book out that is due, but they will basically freeze your library card for a time until you either pay the fine or return the book, whichever happens to be the case. But I've never had that happen to me. So, but I've also like accrued fines where I probably didn't need to, because sometimes I do this thing, like if I've started a book and I know that I will finish it, and I know that I will accrue some fines, but I will still keep it like a week over time if I know that I will be able to finish it, and then I will just be, oh,
Well, yeah, because
gosh
then it
darn
almost
it.
feels like a rental, right? Because you're still
Yeah.
spending less than you would have in buying the book. I've almost done that math before.
Yep.
Libraries are actually how I got into reading more than like 20 books a year, because those due dates would like push me to actually like, okay, you should just sit down for an extra 30 minutes a day and read this book because it's due in 4 days, Angela. Like you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I wish my library got rid of fines, but I also live in a county that is run by by the rich people party, so they are not gonna be getting rid of fines or any sort of tax thing, because that would mean they would have to pay the taxes.
I remember right before the pandemic, it was the last round of BookTube SFF Awards, and I had just gotten all the books out of the library for all those nominations. So I had like so many more than, because I used to only take out a book or two at a time. Just like, oh, I'm reading this book next, I will take this out of the library. It was very like what Belle was like in Beauty and the Beast, one book at a time. So I had this huge stack, and then I wasn't allowed to return them for like 12 months because they weren't having you bring back books. So I just had all these books. I had to stare at Recursion for like 8 months. Like this yellow thing just existing.
Hang on a sec.
I basically, like, because I moved just recently, I had some library books out, and I had to, like, because I was so scared that, okay, in the move I'm either gonna lose them or something will happen, so I just returned all of them. And then when I got these two, because these are from the library, and I hadn't moved yet, so I actually went and picked them up on the last day that I could pick them up before they were returned to the libraries that they came from, and I took them to my work and put them in my like cubby over there, so that I wouldn't lose them, and I could just take them to my new place.
Oh. So this is my husband, and this is one of the books that we still need to return.
Oh, I'm sorry.
15 library books.
Yeah, but like the problem is kids, right? Because when you go for yourself, you grab 2, 5 books for yourself. Then you take your kids, and you're like, picture books. You're gonna grab like 15 of them. So then you miss a day, and it's like it adds up if you have to pay a fine.
I remember when I was a kid, there was this, in Finland we have these things called library buses. So there's a bus that is like decked with bookshelves, and there's a librarian's cash registry, or like the checkout desk, where and behind that is the driver's seat, so they can just roll into the driver's seat and drive up the bus. And those buses usually come to the schools in the rural areas, so that the kids who won't have access to libraries in like they live too far away from the nearest one or whatever, they have these buses doing the rounds. And every single Friday there would be a library bus come to the school, and I would pick up like this huge pile of books, and my mom would always complain because you're not gonna read all of them, and I was like, yes, I am. And I always did back when I was a kid. But nowadays, like all the books I read are like 1,000 page chonkers, not like the like the 50-page Nancy Drews that I used to read. Like it's feel like adulthood has cheated me of easy experiences of like finishing a book in a single hour.
Yeah, I used to read like all like this. It's not even middle grade, right? It's like the step before it with like the children chapter books, like Bailey School Kids and Junie B. Jones were a lot of the ones I grew up with. And it's like we used to we went to the half price bookstore, our used bookstore, more than the library, and I was allowed to get whatever I wanted there because they were usually like $2 a piece or something. And I just try and get every single one of them. It'd be like this many, but it'd be like 10 books in this much space. Just like fantastic.
So Rachel, I think it depends. Do you actually have these at home, like checked out, or are they just like on hold waiting for you at the library? Because I mean, I guess it depends too. Like if you get different, like if you get like a novel and then you also get like a, I don't know, like a nonfiction coffee table book or something, like, I don't know.
Well, and like,
Something
I guess for
smart.
me and my reading speed, it depends on your library too. So if it's not a new release book, I can have a book for 3 weeks before the first renewal. And usually if it's not a new release, it's easy to get renewals. New release books, it's only 2 weeks. But like 3 weeks,
if you
10
can handle
books,
it, Rachel,
you can do
that's
it.
awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like my problem is that I always put in holds, expecting that okay, 1 or 2 will come out, and then I will read them and return them, and then always they will all come out at the same time. All the holds will come in, and then I will have like 10 books waiting for me at the library, and I'm like, oh no, I don't have time for this.
That's
I
nice.
was writing most of my dissertation at the library, and I was pretty good about not just like taking books out while I was there or reading there. I just needed a new place to work, especially because it was during the pandemic, so I couldn't go into the office. It was like home or the library. And once though, the Echo Wife jumped off the shelf into my hand. Like that happened frequently. That like I would just walk by the new releases shelf and it's like, oh, I've been staring at you for 5 weeks, and suddenly I'm reading you, and suddenly I've checked you out, and I've taken you home, and oops, I didn't have a TBR.
Yeah, it's so true, Ron.
That's
Yeah,
why I
I
miss on my
have
old
this
system of
problem
only.
where I have this problem where I read a lot of new releases, so I, always have really long holds like stacked up in my life, like with my digital holds, right? And I've been like pausing continually them for the last few months because I just wasn't ready for them. Right. I've been reading a lot of ARCs and stuff, so I had a lot of audiobooks and whatnot. So then the last couple of weeks, they've literally all been coming in. And I'm like, I don't know. How many can I read this week? So yes, that happens.
yup.
I really miss my old system where I only like asked for a hold when I wanted to read it like next or next to next, back when like I only read 6 books a month. It was like such a simple life I lived. And I mean, I wouldn't go back because I love how much I read now, but it was so simple.
I'm still wondering at every person who reads like more than 6 books a month, because I feel like now, because I'm mobile hotspotting my way to the internet, so I don't have like a reliable connection. Therefore, when I don't want to like mobile hotspot and I don't want to use and I can't be on the internet, I have noticed that I've gotten in so much more reading, because suddenly when you don't have anything else to do, you kind of are more likely to pick up a book.
Yeah, no,
Interesting
I'm
how that
so
happens.
distracted by the internet while I'm reading.
Yeah, I mean, people last night when I was doing reading sprints, everyone apparently thinks I read fast, and I just read a lot because I actually don't have a fast reading speed. Like in 20 minutes, I read 14 pages. Like I don't actually have a fast reading speed,
Yeah.
but I actively don't watch that much TV or movies anymore. I don't video game a lot, and I don't think those are bad things. Like I don't advocate that people do that. It's just how I'm choosing to spend my free time.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's like everyone has different. Like I feel like for me at least, probably also because of ADHD, but I flit from like one activity to another. So like I can't focus on, for example, reading for an extended period of time unless I'm like really hyper focused, like that one time when I literally read the entire Lifeship Traders trilogy in the span of 3 weeks, from
well, that's
first
just
book
how
to
that
the
trilogy
last
works.
one.
That's just
I just could not stop. It was I was like, anytime someone came over and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" and I'm like, "Shut up, I'm reading." Like I can't. I need to know what happens next. I need to know that Paragon will be all right.
I love that feeling. It's such a good feeling to like get so wrapped up
Yes.
in a book.
That's
Which-
why this month's been great for me so far. It's been a long time since I've had that. I feel like I've had a lot of not necessarily slumpy months, but like it's been hard to think what was a book that like reminded me why I'm a reader. You know, like the book that like pulls you in. And like this month I've just been like having back to back like really engaging reads. Like maybe
Yeah,
not all 5 stars, but like have all been like books that have called to me when I've had them put down, you know?
It's interesting because I've had this thing. I read the 2 novellas that I was talking, like the Neon Hemlock novellas, and I still have one more that just came out that I possibly could read. And those were actually really surprisingly interesting. Like they were kind of like felt a little unpolished at times, but I felt like there was like really fresh takes in both of those novellas, and I really liked especially the Uncommon Charm was really good. Like really
No, I
liked
think
it.
Neon Hemlock, that's the publisher, right? Because they're the
Yeah.
ones who did And What Can We Offer You Tonight? And I'm like, they seem like they pick up some really interesting works.
Yeah, the like in both of those novellas, I felt like the character voice and the authorial voice was really interesting. Like so, like I don't want to say that it has never been done before, but it just felt like fresh. Like and they weren't really like overwritten in a sense. Like they felt like more like natural. Like there wasn't all that much like artifice and like I felt like there wasn't as much editorial meddlement in that sense. To me, at least. I don't know if that feeling comes across to anyone else reading them, but I thought that I like them because I feel like with like or maybe it's because I read like Tor.com novellas, even when they are by different authors. I feel like because they are published by the same imprint, that imprint tends to pick a certain type of story. Even
Yeah,
if
I
the
feel like
stories are
imprints have
completely,
filters.
yeah, even if the stories are different, they kind of start to feel like they are the same or they are similar because that's how they work. The imprint just tends to pick up the stories that suit their vibe in a sense.
I agree. I mean, I think you even see that with some of the bigger imprints, but like, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, I think it's such a shame for like the Hugos that it was only Tor.com, because Tor.com for novellas has a very specific flavor and what they look
Yeah.
for. And it's like, okay, I'm exhausted by this flavor. I am
Yeah.
over it. I would like something else. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like having like vanilla ice cream for so long and then you get like chocolate and you're like, oh, this taste is so different.
and even if you exit novella space, like I think Orbit really has a type, like Orbit books. There's a type. There
Yes.
are like a couple types, but like if I read a book, I can sometimes probably guess if it's an Orbit book or a Tor book or a Tor. Like you can play that game
Yeah.
and maybe be right like 75% of the time.
Yeah, I definitely feel that.
Yeah. I wanted to show you guys. So I'm reading The Bruising of Killua, and it's a Tachyon novella, and it has like such pretty artwork on the page. Like,
Oh, that is nice. I want to read that as well at some point.
What's
Because
it called
is
again?
it's on my wish list. Bruising of Killua.
yeah, by Nassim Jamnia.
I'm just looking at the store for Neon Hemlock. So many cool covers too.
Now I'm kind of sad that I didn't like. Obviously, I took the ebook route because I was like, I'm not gonna pay shipping to Finland for like all of these novellas that are coming out this year, and there's probably going to be customs fees, and I'm gonna be broke as hell. So I took the like ebook route, and now I'm regretting it because I was like, I want to be able to touch all these books though
And
that I
it's
liked.
and what's nice about them is like their novellas are not overpriced per se. I mean, they're still expensive. Like, so if you live in the United States to get these novellas, it's like $11, $12 versus a Tor.com novella is like almost $30. It's like 25 or something. Like it's now they're hardback and these are usually paperback, but still it's like it's a big difference.
Ron, you're absolutely right. I feel like I feel like the novella space kind of like Tor.com that just kind of came. They were the sort of like the first um imprint to start doing like really mainstreaming novella specifically, and put it, and because they are such like they have this pretty packaging. They're hardcovers. They're like they put a lot of emphasis on like the cover designs and such, that they are a very easy way for people to consume novellas and have become mainstream that way. That people like are
Well, they
just
also have
kind
some
of
huge
taking the
series in them. Like they have some
yeah
popular series. Like Murderbot is probably the
yeah,
biggest reason why it happened.
and also like they have the marketing push behind them. Like they like Tor.com is like putting serious dollar in marketing.
And like I
Yeah.
mean I know like we're coming down on them a little. I still actually really love them as an imprint because they're one of the most
Yeah,
diverse
same.
in terms of their author choosings. Like
Yeah,
they have
same.
like the most non-binary authors I read from, the most people of color. Like
I mean, my problem with Tor.com usually comes down to the fact that they market everything as a kind of like um like a pulpy rom-com sort of way. Like this is a hilarious like high stakes swashbuckling adventure, and then it's like docile, and you're like,
this is why I'm
no,
glad I don't pay attention to marketing because like I don't even understand how that could happen with that book. I don't even know. Like I read that book knowing full well what it was going in, and even then I was still just like, what? Like in no way does the book itself romanticize what's happening in the book.
yeah. But it's like Tor.com has this habit of marketing things in the like they kind of abuse the sort of fandom slang when it comes to marketing, especially like for example with Dozal they did this AO3 tags system, which is basically like because AO Archive of Our Own has this like tags that are used, and they use those in the marketing of Dozal, and what that what and that kind of tended to give a certain type of vibe to the people who were reading this, are like, oh, this is gonna be kind of like fan fiction, so it's kind of gonna be like more lighthearted or like there like that kind of vibe, and then it wasn't that, and people were like, wait, what? This was
Well, and
about
then I
sex
read
slavery
reviews.
all along.
I read some reviews for it, and it is like one specific type of fan fiction, but it's not a type of fan fiction that most people read.
It's not the type of fan fiction most people associate with
Yeah.
being fan fiction.
Now, I don't think this is Tor.com, but I think I still am mad about Gideon the Ninth's marketing. I think that one's just Tor. And that's
Tor.com,
another thing is
by
like,
the way.
what is a Tor and what's a Tor.com? Because they're the same family.
Well,
Videonews.com.
yeah, Gideon the Ninth is Tor.com.
Well, it depends because I'm going on Amazon and it says just Tor. So I can never
Well,
tell which one's
Tor.com
which.
and Tor are
They're
the
the same,
Tom
but they're
Doherty
different.
Tom Doherty associates.
Okay. But I disliked the marketing for Gideon the Ninth so much. I was so angry.
I mean,
By the way, Uncanny Magazine is just running its Kickstarter for next year for the subscription, and I think they just got to the point in their stretch goals where they're gonna publish at least one novella length story in the magazine next year.
But I mean, so here's the thing: Tor, for all of its flaws, does succeed at marketing in that they get their books out there. We all hear about them endlessly.
Yes.
Like I think they get nominated for the Hugos because we've all heard of them, and then those ones in the magazines get lost. Like I don't hear about them, or they're in magazines that you have to pay for. So unless you're a subscriber of the magazine, like, what are you going to go pick up this magazine issue that has a novella that you've never heard of that hasn't been marketed at all? Like, because that's the thing, the novellas in the magazines don't get marketed separate from the magazine that I've ever seen.
They don't get marketed, and also the thing is that sometimes when you're reading the magazine itself, you don't necessarily like who's gonna look at the word count and decide that it's a novella. You're just gonna read a story unless it's specifically told that this is a novella, this is a short story, this is a novella. People are not gonna realize that they're reading a novella. So,
Yeah, there was a one, I think it was called The Nocturnals or something. It was a Metaphorosis magazine last year, and I could not for the life of me figure out if it was a novella or a really long novelette. Like I just couldn't figure it out. It's like, and I think some of the magazines are a little more savvy and they will put word counts on it. Like I think Uncanny has word counts for all of their stories.
Uncanny also tags their like they specifically tag that this is a novelette and this is a novella, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
anyways, I
the
agree with you.
but the one Uncanny magazine issue that I read this year didn't have a single novella or novelette. Everything was just a short story. So
Yeah.
Was there a tier? I've been looking through the Uncanny magazines like Kickstarter. I can't seem to find a tier where you can like purchase the physical version. Or am I missing
because
it?
Uncanny doesn't publish physical versions of it's completely digital. So you're getting an ebook. You will get I think they do EPUB, MOBI, and PDF, and you get all three formats.
That's too bad because I would, if I were to get a magazine, I might get Uncanny just because they have the most gorgeous cover art. Like
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a tier where you can get a poster of one of the covers of that year or something.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was looking
Yeah.
at the tiers.
Pretty. I would like having them.
Well, it's also like Uncanny is still like a semi-pro zine, so
Yeah.
it's like printing is very expensive. So
No,
that is
I
why
mean, that's
I
why
think
just think that-
Fire magazine also does the postcard things. They actually like you can buy every single cover that they have done in postcard format if you want some physical rewards, and they also have that swag. But other than that, you will. Um, I think print magazines nowadays. I think Lightspeed is in print and is Asimov's as well. I feel like Rachel like might know more about print magazines because like those have always been completely out of reach for me because they don't ship outside of the United States or like outside of like very limited number of countries. Like if you're not in the United States or Canada or possibly the UK, you won't get them.
Yeah. It's true.
No, I was just curious because I think that's a thing. Like, as someone who's never been drawn to the magazine space of SFF and is like starting to dip my toes in, there is something that like I think it's probably part of my science background of how you could buy physical versions of like publications and stuff like that. It's like I really wish I could just flip through it and hold it and like collect them like I would comics or something. Like that's like kind of the space I want it in. And it's like ebooks. It's like I do have ebooks, but normally I just get them from the library. I don't collect ebooks. I don't buy ebooks. I don't actually like the files holding space on my machines.
I get that. I mean,
Also,
I just recently had to buy another hard drive just to hold my, backups.
Another nice thing about the magazines, though, is that I would like to be able to flip through and see how long the stories are. You know, like if I want to sit down for like just a few minutes, I'm going to look for like the shorter story. And that's harder to do on an e-reader. You know, it's like, I don't know how long it is, just the next one.
I've gotten a little bit better at converting loci or whatever the Kindles call it to pages, but it's an inexact science, to say the least. I hate los or whatever they're called. It's like the dumbest thing to give me as an inexperienced person to look at.
I mean, I'm currently I'm reading the between the Releaseathon reads, I'm reading the August pick for the Shorts and Sorcery book club. And I have to say that the ebook experience of that reading that book has been atrocious because the way it is formatted is absolutely shit tier. There are sometimes I will have to like do some deductive work on like what word they are meaning even because there's like hashtags and like some code blocks and stuff and the word is sort of like nested between that and I'm like it's so weird to have that happen. You're reading a paragraph and then suddenly there's a nonsense word and then you're like, wait, what? And then you realize that the first syllable of the word is before the code block, then comes a code block, and then comes the rest of the word. So it really like jars the reading experience.
That's horrible.
and it happens in every single story so far. So I'm like, I can't recommend this specific book as an ebook because the ebook reading experience is awful. Garbage.
Speaking of reading, should we do another sprint in the near
Yes.
future?
Yeah. Ray, can you just remind me what magazine you're reading this month?
This month I'm reading an anthology. Next month is a magazine. This month I'm reading. We're reading Where the Whale is Thin. So it's a dark fantasy anthology all about fairy stories.
Ooh.
And the stories actually are pretty nice. It's just that the formatting of the ebook sucks.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because the stories, like, there have been some really interesting ones so far.
That's awesome.
What's it called again? Where the what?
Where the Whale is Thin. Also, the cover is beautiful, by the way. Like if you look it up and see the cover is gorgeous. I would want a poster from just that cover.
Yeah. So this would be a good one to have in physical form.
Yeah,
How long should we sprint for this time?
maybe 15 minutes. That would even us out until half past.
I just have to leave at 4, so it's whatever you guys want to do. I was wondering if you wanted to do like 20 or 30, and then we can chat until I leave, and then you guys can keep sprinting.
Yeah, let's do 30 then.
Okay. I can do 30. I can get this set up.
Oh, my cat's been sleeping in the carrier across from me, and it's just like so adorable. Here, I'll show you guys. Look at her. Delilah. We've all curled up.
Mine is over there.
Oh,
He has found the armchair.
it is their armchair now.
Yes. It's actually funny because my friend started calling him the vampur because he spends like every day, for the most of the day, he spends like hiding behind a cabinet and he kind of sleeps there and it looks like he's in a coffin and he doesn't come out until like the late evening. I'm hoping that he will actually like get acclimated to the new place.
They usually do. I mean, my cats have moved with me across states and several times in the last 7 years, and they always do okay. All right, happy reading.
Happy reading. Phew.
Oh, my body went into nap time mode, so I didn't nap, but I couldn't keep reading after I read like 18 pages. I was like, oh no, it's either the book or it's me. Can't decide which.
I'm on page 35 now, and it's getting interesting. Like, there's some magic stuff happening, and I'm really excited because it's like the magic is all inspired by like all of this Finnish like nature remedies and like hedge witches and stuff like that. It's like really cool. But also like it leans into some other things, like for example, like this idea like there's this old belief in like old Finnish mythology that left-handed people were more likely to be cursed and more likely to be corrupted by evil. And the other point of view character is left-handed, and he's constantly having to ward off like evil spirits because of that, which is like I'm not sure how well that translates nowadays. Like I know that it was a myth and that the author is pulling from all these myths, but at the same time I'm like that those myths were kind of there because of prejudice, not because of anything else.
You're muted still.
Thank you. Thank you. I keep forgetting. I'm 64% now. And then I got distracted by a burning question I had to Google. So.
No, I mean, The Bone Orchard, I can't decide if it'll be a story I really like because now it's fallen into like, and I knew this would happen, I think, based off what I did know about the synopsis, where like, oh, key cat, where she's the consort of an emperor and he is poisoned and now she is told that she must figure out who did it. And that's not always my favorite like plot, like motivating factor. So we'll see. We will see. But the problem is like this is one I have to read because a patron buddy read. So
yeah.
Which I don't mind. Like I'm actually pretty good at reading like obligation things, but it's definitely in the territory of like if I wasn't reading this because of other people, I probably would just put it down.
Yeah, totally. How does it compare to Nettle and Bone? Because it's kind of reminding me.
Nothing. There's nothing the same. Nothing. They have bones.
Okay.
Like, no. T. Kingfisher's writing style is astronomically different from this.
Yeah, is it just a lot darker or what?
I mean, I think right now I enjoyed Nettle and Bone. I'm currently trying to struggle to read this book. That's my biggest difference. In terms of like,
nice.
I mean, I do think that like our main character in The Bone Orchard is going through darker things than Mara and Nettle and Bone did, but Nettle and Bone is obviously a fairy tale fantasy, and The Bone Orchard is not.
Okay.
Like The Bone Orchard is like, it's more, I guess, is gothic fantasy a thing? I think it's closer to that. Like if gothic, like, you know, like that slow burn, mysterious, dark vibes, not necessarily horror, but like, yeah.
I'm just quickly going to go and wash my hands, but I will still be able to hear you because of Bluetooth headphones, but just...
Nice.
Okay.
The cat kind of sprayed me a little bit.
Oh no! Uh-oh.
Oh, poor kitty
Nice
cat.
run. This is actually sounding really interesting to me. I might have to check it out.
Yeah, no, like I just remember my one friend not necessarily liking the writing style too much, but that the intrigue of it all was enough for her to, you know, have a good time. But no, I mean, yeah. And also, I think what's hard about The Bone Orchard right now is like there are 4 sons of this king, and so one of them would take over, and they're all actually the most dreadful human beings. And some of it's implied that it's like magical mental health stuff, but it still makes them horrible trash people. And some of it's just that like they're horrible trash people. And it's like, man, you're just surrounded by trash. Is there anyone else you can latch onto? And I think that's my thing is Nettle and Bone, Mara instantly gets a team of people to be around her pretty much. Like she has connections, people she's friends with can lean on. And currently, I think our main character, the reason she's kind of made so many of herself is she doesn't have anyone to lean on but herself. And it's like, I don't know. I like more interpersonal relationships in my book than like someone who's like left on their own. Unless it's like a short literary work. And this is like 400-ish pages.
Mm.
And it looks like it should be a Tor.com book, but it's just a Tor book when I look inside of its flap, and it doesn't have the special thing. So, but it's the same height as a Tor.com book because Tor books are taller.
I don't
I
know.
don't understand.
Interesting.
No, it's really weird. I can't ever figure out what's what. So, but Evie, I appreciate you telling me that. But like sometimes it is good for me to just read a book, even if I don't like it. Sometimes it's good for me. It's not like when I was reading the first binding, when I was just like actively wanting to chuck that book across the room after only 7 pages. I was like not having a good time with that new release, unfortunately.
Is it another one of those books that's like the patriarchy sucks big time?
The Bone Orchard or the first binding?
The Bone Orchard.
I mean, I don't know if she's in the position she's in because of the patriarchy, but I don't like any of the male characters I've been introduced to.
Okay.
Like, I mean, there's an emperor and he's in charge and his sons will take over next. So I guess it's, kingdom. And she runs a brothel. It's just like, there's just a lot of abusive people around her.
Yeah.
I had to pet the kitty to let him know that I don't hold a grudge.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I vote done because Angela's really not selling Bone Orchard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things also, though, where also several reviews I saw for Bone Orchard is that a lot of people, even people who ended up giving it 4.5 stars, were iffy on the beginning. So it could just be one of those books where it takes a while for the groundwork to be set. And then I think there's potentially a moment where something like the reference frame or perception of the situation changes and suddenly there's like a click and then it's like a very interesting read for some people. So I kind of want to see if that'll happen. I have the audiobook, so I can just like ramp that up to 3 times speed and go if need be.
I'm still amazed that you can do 3 times speed. Like 1.5 is my like 1.5 is like my sweet spot. Like I can't listen to audiobooks nowadays without 1.5 speed. But going upwards of that is like my ability to retain any information just like plummets.
Well, it's audio narrator dependent, and I might not be able to do it with this one. And it's also like a thing I've been practicing, and English is my first language. So like there's a combination of things there. But it also 3 times is normally like if I'm immersion reading. So like with the book to give me the visual cues. So if like maybe one word gets garbled, like my eyes then catch it.
But interestingly, I can't listen to Finnish audiobooks at all because I just can't get into them because like there's this like written Finnish is different from spoken Finnish. And when you have written Finnish, nobody speaks like that in actual real life.
Oh, that's interesting.
And when you hear someone reading out loud and it's the written Finnish, it feels very unnatural to me. So I have a very hard time getting into audiobooks because of that, if the audiobooks are in Finnish.
How does that work? Is that just like a writing convention? Like you just write differently than you would speak? Like, I mean, could somebody
No, it's because the written Finnish is invented in the 1400s. Prior to that, we only had oral communication, and the actual like Finnish that is spoken by Finnish people is like a bunch of different dialects from various areas. For example, I speak in the Savonian dialect for most part, and then there are like Lappish dialects and like the Southwest and different parts speak in a different way. So the written Finnish was first like sort of invented. The written Finnish was invented in the 1400s and kind of expanded from that. But that is why it sounds so different, because it's basically one person decided that okay, they're gonna invent the written form of Finnish for in order to Finnish being for Finnish to be able to be used as in documents and stuff. And they basically based it mostly on the West and Center Finland dialects because that's where they were from. There was actually a language war about it in like the in the 1800s, because the people from the eastern side of Finland were very upset about not being like included in the vocabulary essentially. So there was like a huge uproar about it. But that is the reason that it is completely manufactured.
I wonder if that happens similarly with Ukraine language, because their language also didn't start coming together until more recently. Like I think maybe 1800s. It might even be like that new. And they also had several dialects that were spoken, in different parts of the country and stuff.
Emmy, by the way, has it right. Written Finnish is horrible when they actually speak it in TV shows or movies. Exactly because nobody speaks like that. It is nonsense speak. Nobody talks like that ever.
It's so interesting.
Actually, I had a conversation with Ken Liu in Worldcon 75 in Helsinki about the same thing, that China actually does the same thing, where in China there's this idea of like broadcasters Chinese that is completely different from the like Chinese that is spoken by the general populace.
Wow, you got to talk to Ken Liu.
Yeah, because like
he's great to talk to. Highly recommend meeting him if you ever casually get to.
He is great to talk to, but I met him because Caitlin from Kitty G, because I know Caitlin, and Caitlin had reviewed Ken Liu's books and had kind of gotten a little bit of a rapport with him, and so she met with Ken Liu, and I happened to be there, so that's how I got to talk to him.
He's like a local author here, and it makes me so happy that he's one of our local authors.
He's like, I love listening to him on panels and stuff because he's very
smart, so intelligent.
I could listen to him recite from a cookbook. He just makes every single topic sound like the most interesting topic ever.
Truly.
So actually, I had another idea. Like when you have Finnish TV, when they're writing the scripts for the shows, did they write it differently, or do they have to like kind of translate it when the actors are acting it out? Like,
no, they usually just write it in the written form. Like sometimes they try to include dialects, but even in the dialects, if the person who is acting is not familiar with the dialect, it sounds very wooden when they try to act like for example, if a person from Turku tries to act like they're from Savo, it's like, I know you're trying, but I also know that this is not how you speak naturally.
that's so
because
funny.
they put intonation on it, like especially in my dialect, it's very like upwards flowy.
Yeah.
And we kind of stretch and twist every single word. It starts on the pronoun level. Like we have a completely separate like way we say the pronouns, for example, than other parts of Finland.
Okay.
So is it hard to understand people from other parts of Finland?
Not really. Like it's more like it's not hard, or even it's not hard at all to understand other people, but you definitely notice immediately where they're from.
Like it's beyond just an accent. It's like
it's a dialect. It's like you have your separate like slang and words. Like sometimes when I'm at work and when I speak with some of my coworkers and I will use some word that is pretty much like based in Savo or Karelia, people will be like, if they're not familiar with the word already, or if they haven't really been exposed to the Savonian vocabulary, they will ask me like, what does that mean?
Okay, last question. Is there like, do different dialects have different prestige? Like if you speak a certain dialect, is that seen as better or worse compared to other ones, or are they all pretty much equal?
I feel like the more northern dialects definitely get a lot of flack, like compared to like southern dialects. But because I think like southern dialects have more like prestige because of media, because like a lot of like influencers and stuff, because they live in the Helsinki metropolitan area, they speak the dialect there. Therefore, it becomes like that's kind of what you think about when you think about what Finnish sounds like, is the southern dialects.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I must go. You guys have fun continuing your reading times. Bye.
See you. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it all about Finnish, but like.
No, I'm like really curious because it's making me remember like I studied music education, and so I was kind of like in that education world, and all the rage like 10 years ago or whatever was Finnish education is the best in the world. And some of the so, but here's the thing is like people would say like they're the best, but then the criticisms would be, well, we can never do that in the States because we're just so different. And everybody in Finland is so monolithic. Like they're all just so, they're the same culture and the same. And now it's like, but is that really true?
Well, I would say that Finland is more homogenic. There hasn't been a lot of like outside exposure aside from like being like being under Russian and Swedish rule, but those are like neighboring states. But in terms of like outside exposure to like anything below like Denmark level, that's a relatively new thing from like the 50s onwards, and everything from like it's interesting because like there was a lot of like I would probably say like foreign exposure through like the Russian Empire. Like Finland was kind of like the last stopgap between like, for example, Sweden and Asia, because like through Russia we got a lot of like exports and stuff to Finland from like East Asia and like Northeast Asia and stuff. So in that sense there has been like exposure in that way, but in terms of like population it isn't very varied. It's pretty like a new thing. Like for example, if you compare like people of color in Finland, like we got probably the first people who got brought to Finland due to like Christian like what's the word for like missionaries, were like in the very very late 1800s, like 1890s or the early like 1900s, like not before 1910s. Like that's the starting point of like when there has started to be a little more like diversity in terms of ethnicity. But but like we don't have a lot of like it's a very insular country and has been for a long time, and also like the wars disrupted that as well. So so in that sense, in terms of like cultural variety, not in the sense that America has cultural variety, but I wouldn't say that Finns are monolithic, because like there's definitely a lot of like traditional and cultural variation between like different parts of Finland.
Yeah. I know. I'm thinking about it now. I'm not really sure that I understand the argument that Finland can do something different because of the homogeneity. Like, is that just racism? Like, what?
I think that's just. I personally don't really understand why that is an argument. I think that the reason why we're able to like well, they always try to bring this argument that it's because we have a small population and that's why we're able to do these things, but usually like a lot of the policies, for example, that we have around healthcare and stuff are very easily scalable.
Yeah.
So it's
I
personally think that it's just like like an avoidance tactic, like trying to like give excuses for not even wanting to try to like implement any of the things.
No, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of excuses. Oh man. Yeah. So we were talking about book speeds, audiobook speeds. I can't go much past 1.5. It depends on the narrator. Sometimes I can get up to 2, but almost never.
I mean, I can get up to 1.75, but that requires that the narrator is incredibly slow speaking already.
Yeah.
1.5 is usually like because if it starts to become more like the chipmunk voice, then I will just not be able to retain anything. And even
Yeah.
now, like I always have to have something to do with my hands, like knitting or crocheting while I'm listening to an audiobook. Otherwise, I won't be able to remember a single thing.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm the same way. I feel like I can sometimes concentrate better on audiobooks because I can multitask, and like that just makes it so that oh wow, hello.
Yeah, you
It
have someone to block.
Yeah. I didn't block them fast enough. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it helps me focus more because I can do something else simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
I love that like my like Bookworm Dreams has the same thing. Like
Yeah, I think I think
we
a lot of
definitely have this as well.
yeah. I mean, even in the States, we have the accent that you hear in most media that you consider the standard American accent. But we also have a ton of accents. I wouldn't say they're different dialects though. Like
I mean, the difference between dialects and an accent is that accent is just like sort
the
of
sound.
the sound of a language. Dialect is when you have like a specific, not only vocabulary but also like grammar
Yeah.
starts to become distinct from from the way people speak.
You know what? I kind of wonder if I have some kind of neurodivergence that makes my brain operate the way it does. My husband is starting to question maybe I have ADHD. I don't know.
I mean, even if you don't, it's good to like start to think about it and like figure it out, because like I personally like I got diagnosed with ADHD, but even if I wouldn't have, I think it's just helpful to know if or not you have something. That way you get more tools
Yeah,
to like
exactly. More information is
like
more power.
yes.
I have noticed, Emmy, that if I am immersion reading, which I almost never do, I notice that I read faster, which surprises me honestly, than the audiobook reader reads. So I get what you're, especially if you're eye reading, you could probably process much faster audiobook time. That's awesome. I do.
I
I
will
do chores too.
I will say that now that I have moved, I have noticed that uh well like I've noticed that when I'm, for example, listening to booktube or something, I can just like, rise up from the chair. I don't have to necessarily watch the video. I can just listen to it, and then I can go vacuuming the apartment at the same time. I was like, what is this revelation?
Yeah. Although video games is
And
always
also folding laundry also.
yeah.
Like that is my, like, folding laundry is my least favorite chore ever. And also like anything to do with laundry is my least favorite chore ever, and I feel like audiobooks definitely help with making it less tedious. Like nowadays, if I designate an audiobook that, okay, this, I will only listen to this audiobook when I'm doing chores, it actually makes me want to do the chores.
Yeah. I know. I like to listen to I get my Bluetooth headphones and I just walk around doing my chores with the reading the audiobook. But I have kids, so sometimes that throws a wrench in my
Yeah.
plans. Like they keep
I
interrupting
mean,
us.
I mean, obviously you can't just ignore your kids. You need to actually pay attention to them and like talk to them when they decide that they want to talk to you.
Yep. And especially if like they see me right there, they can't resist. So, suddenly they need everything.
Do you want to do another like maybe 20-minute sprint?
Yeah,
Then it
20
would be
minutes
like
sounds
half past.
Yeah, let me get this set up. For some reason, this is really slow. I might need to find a new timer style to use.
I mean, if you want, I can also put up a timer, because do seem to be able to share.
Oh, cool.
So I can do that. Just a
It
moment.
might be faster just because this is taking so long to load.
2020. Just a moment. Share screen. And select window. And now you should be able to put it on the thing because it's in the studio and you're the host and admin. Well, that happened. Kristen? Are you there?
So sorry. Oh my gosh.
I got scared there for a moment. I mean the live was still going, but I was like, wait, what happened? Did you drop out?
I went to close the window with the video and I closed the whole browser instead. I'm just being clumsy over here. All right, so
Okay. Okay. I will just.
Okay, there we
And
go.
here we go.
All right.
All right, time is up. I got to page 50 now.
Nice. How are you liking it? Still good?
It's interesting. It is getting more interesting. And so here's the thing. Because Finnish is a pretty gender neutral language, you can only really get the gender of the characters through context clues. And everyone in this book is named after an object. So someone is called river, or they're called like branch and stuff like that in Finnish. And those words essentially are genderless. So it takes me a time, like I have fully assumed that a character is some other gender, and then it turns out that they're someone that they are a woman, and I thought that they were a man and stuff like that, and I was like, oh wait. So that's been really interesting.
That is really interesting.
There's
I-
there's also like I'm not sure. I don't want to give the author credit too early because they can still pull the rug from out under me. But there's some interesting like I think there's some queer subtext here that I wasn't expecting because I fully was expecting for this to be mostly a straight romance because that's what's pitched in the blurb. But there's like at least 5 different POV characters so far, and I think at least one of them might be queer.
Awesome. Nice.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Also, I really like this cover.
I know, I was saying earlier, it's beautiful. It looks like fine art, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to 72%, so I'm making my way through this novella.
Nice.
It's getting more
Which
interesting.
novella? Like it's still the burning of
Bruising of Kilo.
Ilwan? Yeah, that I know names. I know what things mean.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's fantasy, Middle Eastern kind of fantasy, and there's a lot here about like they're kind of discussing a lot about refugees and immigration and kind of the poor way that refugees or immigrants are treated.
Is it
And
also a Tor.com novella, or is it a novella by someone other publisher?
it's Tachyon.
Ah, Takion. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping, I'm just sincerely hoping now that the gridlock of the novella industry and novella market is being like slowly ripped apart, and like Tor.com will have some other competitors aside from like just Neon Hemlock. I think Tachyon is one, but Solaris I think is also putting out novellas now.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with them. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, one thing that we can say for Tor is that they are, I think they're responsible for kind of popularizing novellas.
Yes.
I feel like people are talking about novellas now.
I feel also that maybe now that Tor has made novellas like marketable, other
Mhm.
publishers realize that, oh, okay, this can sell,
Yeah,
therefore we can publish these more.
yeah, definitely. I have high hopes. I think more novellas from other publishers will be entering the market.
But I also feel like I would very much like, for example, for Golans or Orbit to like do their own like um, sub imprint or something for novellas. Like, I mean, what would be the harm?
Yeah, totally. I know. I don't know why Orbit doesn't. I mean, I feel like they're Tor's direct competitors. You would think they
Yeah.
would want to keep up. But yeah. I don't know. This one's also cool because it has a lot of like queer representation. The
Yeah,
main character.
I actually do want to read it at some point. I was supposed to like I have it in my shopping cart in or have had it in my shopping cart for a while, but because of the move I wasn't able to like buy it, and I'm thinking I might want to do that at some point because I do want to read it, and I do want to support the author.
Yeah.
So essentially usually like I'm more likely nowadays to pick up a book physically and like actual like buying up a book if it's by um like a marginalized creator, because like they usually have more of like barrier to entry in
Yeah,
publishing. So usually I'm just thinking that, for example, um like Mary Robinette Kowal or Martha Wells or like the big name authors necessarily don't need my support that much because they already have the reach and name recognition, whereas like debut authors and like authors that are repped by smaller publishers need it more financially.
right. Yeah, exactly.
So like I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful with like, for example, because like um a lot of us don't have a lot of like disposable income to put towards things. So that's why I try to be a little mindful and think more about where I direct that disposable income.
Yeah, totally. I'm looking at Ron's comment here. Thank you for the warning, Ron. I am not sure. I think it depends on how it's portrayed.
Depends on the danger, though. Like,
Yeah.
is it similar danger as, let's say, Enid Blyton with the famous five or whatever? Like, it's that kind of cozy danger, or is it like,
Sure.
well, cozy danger where kids are going on adventures and stuff,
Okay.
or is it like actual like
Well, I
terrible
mean,
danger?
I think for me, it's how gratuitous is it? Is it just
Mm,
trying to like shock you with how horrible it is, or is it just a plot point? You know, I think I
yeah,
struggle more with real life stories about kids suffering than
yeah.
fantasy. Okay,
Oh,
interesting.
homicidal danger. Okay, okay. That doesn't sound too great.
Maybe I'll try it. We'll see how it goes. I'll get ready to DNF it.
Um, Speaking of homicidal, did you already watch The Sandman?
No, not yet, but I'm planning to. I'm trying to decide if I should read the comic books first because my husband loves
Okay,
graphic novels. I got them for him. We have them in the house.
so here's the thing. I will say that, okay, so I have not read all of the comics. I have only read the first serialization and then some one-offs, and I haven't read the overture at all. So I think I've read maybe like 40% of the comics or so, and I really loved this show. But I will say that I would probably recommend you watch the show first and then go read the comics, because then you won't have the expectations of the comics sort of coloring the way you view the show, and you can just enjoy it as its own thing. Um, it's been a while since I've read the comics, but this adaptation made me want to revisit the comics
Okay.
again. So it
Yeah.
was kind of like inspiring, because I have fond memories of reading the comics, but I don't actually like recall a lot of what happened in the comics, because it's been so long since I read them. I was like a teenager when I read them last, and this really like inspired me to like, oh wait, I want to see how this was done in the comics. It was such an enjoyable series. My whole plan of watching one episode per night completely derailed after the second evening. I was like, oh no, I need to watch more.
I've been
And
hearing so many great things, like only positive reviews so far of the show.
it was so delightful. And it like, even like, there are some pretty like, even when there's gore in the series, I still feel like it isn't like gratuitous in the same way, for example, like something like Game of Thrones is, where that it wants to like shock you with the gore. There's
Right.
more like I felt like the the sort of blood and guts scenes were not as shocking as the actual like some of the like dramatic interpersonal scenes were, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
I think I get
there were moments where there were just like, you know, two people in a car having a conversation that was more unnerving and uncomfortable than watching someone, you know, stab someone, you know, like it's
Yeah, I
interesting.
think it takes skill to be able to pull that off, I feel like.
Yeah, and I really wish, like, I hope that you will be able to watch it soon because it was so good. Definitely nominating it next year for
Yeah,
obvious categories, and
yeah,
I'm expecting it to sweep.
yeah. Well, because it's on Netflix too, right?
Yeah,
So it's very accessible. I think a lot of times, like HBO shows don't do as well in the Hugo nominations just because people don't have as much access to it.
yeah.
But speaking of HBO, we're watching Westworld right now. I think it's season 4. So we'll probably do Sandman after we finish Westworld.
I want to, like, I watched the first 2 seasons of Westworld, and I want to watch the next one. I know the third one is out, but isn't the fourth one coming out soon, or did it already come out?
It's still coming out. Like, I think half of the episodes are out right now.
Ah, okay, so it's running right now. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm waiting for?
Hmm.
The Nevers. I want the second season of the Nevers, and now I'm actually like, now I need to check. When did the Nevers come out?
I don't think I've heard of that one. What's that one about?
Yeah, it came out in 2021. I'm
Mm.
shocked that I'm actually shocked that the Nevers did not make it to the Hugo shortlist for like either the long form or short form presentation. It's basically a sort of science fantasy series that takes place in the sort of Edwardian time period,
Huh.
or like the late 1800s, like 1880s, 1890s, something along those lines. And it's basically has it
Oh, is it
basically
Joss Whedon?
yeah, Joss Whedon was the showrunner, but he left the show.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there is a hold or what, but like Joss Whedon is not. Um, let's see.
I'm gonna just Google it because I
I'm
feel like I
gonna
should have
see if
heard of
there
this.
is a. The second half of the first season will premiere in 2022. So the first half of the the second half of the first season, it hasn't even been published yet.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm.
I haven't
I
heard of
have
this. I'm
been.
gonna have to watch it.
It is. I watched it with Rachel from Kalanadi. We watched it together, and it was great.
Oh,
And I'm still waiting um, for the next episodes because really
yeah.
there's like 6 more episodes I think coming from the first season. But I don't think it's on hold. I because Joss Whedon, when the whole debacle with his like abhorrent behavior came to light, he was very quick to distance himself from the show in order to let the like cast and crew members and stuff to like not be mired in his like the whole shit show that he had going on. So
That's,
it has new showrunners and like everything.
did you ever watch Infinity Train?
No, I haven't.
That's another HBO show. It's no longer running, but I was really like sad that it didn't get nominated for the Hugos this year because the last season came out last year. I think you would really like it. It's super good. Kind of like
I need
this.
to check that out. Is it still up on HBO Max or something like in the streaming
I
service?
think so.
I need to
I
check
would be
that out.
surprised if they took it down.
There's also like I want to watch The Boys at some point.
It's so
I have
good.
heard I have heard many things about it. I want to watch it at some point.
Yeah, we just finished watching that before we started Westworld. No. We watched Strange New Worlds in between too. We've been watching a lot of TV. That's what my husband and I do every night. We get the
I
kids to
al-
bed and then we watch TV.
I also watched the Stranger Things season 4 a while back,
Yes.
and it was actually pretty good because I have like I still think the first season is the first season was so good, and then the second season was kind of okay. Third season was like okay, this is better than the second season, but like still not up to par of the first one. But I really like the fourth one. Really like the fourth season.
See, no, I like all of Stranger Things kind of the same, but because I think for me it's about the vibes. Like you just play that synth music for me and I'm in it. That's really all I care about.
I mean, yes.
And the fact that they like subtitle the different kinds of synth music is hilarious.
But I really want when is the Nevers coming? Like it's just like there's nothing except like the series official trailer was released on March 23rd, 2021. The second half of the first season will premiere in 2022 and the last episode was aired May 16th, 2021. That was when the last episode was aired. And the second season hasn't aired yet. So I am curious.
I mean, this just feels very typical of Joss Whedon, though, too. Like his shows always get weird, like cutoffs, and
it's stupid because like the season is done. Like they have filmed it, and it's like the episodes are done. They just haven't aired them.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, I really hope the Nevers doesn't get cancelled as well because it was like seriously, it has like first of all, it had good writing, it had good characterization, and it had great costuming. It had absolutely chef's kiss costuming. So
Yeah,
I really hope fingers crossed. But I also feel like probably the whole Joss Whedon connection might have been a reason why it didn't get nominated.
But I haven't heard people talking about it, so I don't know if it's just. I don't know.
Well, as you say, because it's behind the HBO paywall, so.
Right. Yeah. Sadly. Speaking of which, did you see? Are you a fan of the Greenbone Saga?
I have not read it yet, but I want to. It's in one of those boxes. There are the first 2 books.
Yeah. Well, a few weeks, maybe a couple of months ago at this point, Fondly tweeted, I guess they were going to do Peacock was going to make a TV series based on the books, but that got canceled. But now I'm like, HBO, how about you?
I wish that if HBO would give it to some, like, I just feel like because the Greenbone Saga is like contemporary, it has a contemporary setting with magic, basically. So you could really play up that Hong Kong mob vibe, kind of make it almost like cyberpunky in terms of like aesthetic, but still have it like
so much with it. It's such a aesthetic kind of a book, and the world building is so lush. Like I just want it to get a really big budget and just shown so much love because I want to see it realized in the glory that I imagined it while I was reading it.
Yeah. Oy vey.
Yeah. Should we tie things up here? Wrap things up is what I meant.
I mean, for me, it is almost midnight, so probably yes. Do we want to do like a really, really quick last minute sprint before we wrap things up? Like maybe like, let's say 5 minutes. like
Sure.
like a last minute. Wait, timer. I will edit this. Okay, and I will share. All right. And let's go. Final sprint.
Woo.
And 5 minutes is past.
Nice. I got to 75%, so that feels good.
Nice. I got a little more read, and I probably will continue this in bed because things got real there. I feel like a big theme in this book is going to be struggling to fight against predestination, because there's this like idea that, for example, the head woman in this like matriarch, like basically there's this sort of like matriarchy, like one of the villages. Like the title is referring to two separate cultures and two separate like cities basically, and one of them is like a matriarchy, and the matriarch, who is a kind of like a witch woman, has basically predicted futures for these like children. Like there are these specific children that she has handpicked and predicted their futures, and they feel like this pressure to not go against it, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
it sounds like it.
I'm definitely like happily surprised because like even though this has been on my anticipated reads, this was probably one of the books that I have been least like excited about, in terms of like, I was like, it sounds interesting, but I was like, you know, um, it it just felt like, based on the premise and stuff, it felt very straight.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I don't know why, like, but I just kind of like have a little bit of like a sort of a mildly allergic reaction when a book is like super like aggressively straight, and there is no like no LGBT people to be seen miles away, and everyone is able-bodied and everyone looks the same, and it's just like, it feels very uncomfortable to read because it doesn't feel like an actual representation of any real world anywhere. So it's just like, I get this really like it just doesn't feel entertaining to read.
Yeah, no, I
So,
get you.
and now I'm happily surprised because it feels like this is trying to like do something more. Like this is at least trying to address like gender roles and like people having different ways of like expressing themselves and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm happily surprised for now. It could still turn either way. I'm still like only like close to 60 pages in, and there's like what how many pages are you? Like 300 maybe? Yeah,
Well, at least
300.
even if it doesn't end up being super queer, like at least they're not banging you over the head with the like gender binary in terms of just like how they're portraying the characters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Oh, my cat. He has found the other chair.
Oh. This wallpaper in your apartment is amazing. I love it. Was it there when you came, or did you put it
Yes,
in?
it was here when I came.
Was that how you decided this was your apartment?
That was definitely one of the things, but also like this is just this apartment is actually like super, like I just felt really lucky to be able to find this, because it's been like recently renovated, and I get like, it's a 2-bedroom apartment that I get all to myself,
Nice.
and the rent isn't like super expensive, so it's like it felt like destiny that I happened to find it.
Yeah, it's like made for you.
I'm
That's
gonna
great.
put my bookshelves up on this wall, and then there's a wall over there, and that's where my TV is going to go, and then behind me I'm gonna put a sofa, and then here is my like computer setup,
Nice.
because I didn't want to put my computer in the bedroom.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Keep it separate.
Yeah. But yeah, it's still a work in progress. Someday, hopefully, I will get bookshelves to like match the one over there, and
Yeah.
then I won't have all these boxes.
Oh, interesting. Do you feel like German culture is pretty like not super open to more diversity and stuff?
Well, I feel like at least like German probably is like, because the language is very gendered. Like
Yeah.
every single word is gendered. Like all the der, das, die, like every word has a gendered or article.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's probably like that. At least like I've had friends who are German comment how like it definitely affects how things are handled
Yeah, that makes sense.
in like the stories.
Right. Well, it sounds like it just kind of forces you into a gender binary, like whether you
Yeah.
want to or not.
Did you, by the way, notice? No, because I know that you know you are exposed to Spanish, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
a lot. Yeah. Did you know that the words that are masculine in Spanish are usually feminine in German?
Really? They're just
Yeah.
reversed. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
It's interesting. It's like and also like the way they are described, like for example with adjectives, how like the word associations associated with like feminine words and masculine words switch up when they are gendered differently in other languages that are also gendered.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Like I just find it incredibly fascinating and how friggin' arbitrary all of this is.
Yeah, language is wild.
Like
Yeah.
there's also this idea that um, like in languages where the words are more gendered versus languages that are more gender neutral, and there's a difference between how early children figure out the or realize the concept of gender.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, I just think that in terms of like if you look at different cultures and languages, you start realizing how arbitrary and nonsensical this whole concept of like biology as the most purest and determining factor of anything is. Like it just doesn't hold water really. Because
Yeah.
like our culture and norms and traditions and language really dictate a surprising amount of like how we actually navigate and view the world.
Yeah. Well, it's even as simple as like I hear people that are multilingual talk about how they have different personalities in different languages.
Oh, I actually didn't know that German has gender neutral pronouns now. I love that.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is super cool. It's also like for example in terms of like people using the word Latinx versus Latin, like Latine,
Mm-hmm.
and like and there are also like situations where like people in South American countries have sort of rejected the word Latinx in favor of Latine because they still want the gender neutral option, but Latinx is like a sort of
It's an
US
English solution.
invention. Yeah.
Yeah. Like no Spanish speaking person would have ever come up with that. It's something that an English speaking person came up with. So Latine feels more authentic to Hispanic people.
Yeah.
But I mean I've heard different things too. Like my husband really has a strong preference for Latine. Yeah, see there. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think Audrey from Perpetual Pages has I think it was her. I was watching a video one time
They.
where they were I'm so sorry. Um they were saying like I don't want any arguments about Latinx, Latine, like they're all fine. It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah, I feel like both have merit, but I feel like it is I feel like Latinx is important in terms of the concept, specifically the cultural context of the United States diaspora experience of Hispanic people living in the United States. But I do feel like, and obviously I'm not a Spanish speaker or anything and stuff, but like I feel like there is also like I think it is also valuable to account that people in outside of the United States may want to come up with their own terms and like um, drive forward like linguistic exploration and progressivism on their own terms. Whereas I think that that's part of the reason why they reject the word Latinx, because it's kind of like reeks of
Colonialism.
US intervention.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also this like plus Latina implies a gender neutral mode that Latinx doesn't bring into the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like like Latine sort of like Latinx feels like a single use noun that
Mm.
works by itself as a descriptor of something, but doesn't necessarily work when it comes to like being associated within the broader Spanish context. Saying this only like I only have like a very rudimentary understanding of Spanish. I only took it for like 2 years in high school. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I also still love like just talking about linguistics. I just think that it's like coining words and stuff is fascinating. I read that book about pronouns that this historian had put together, and there was this interesting like how in already in the like 1700s people were like coining gender neutral pronouns for English because there was a need for it.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean I can actually look that up. What was the
Well, when you were talking earlier about how much gender, or not gender, but language shapes the way that we live, including how we perceive gender and stuff, it made
yeah
me
the
wonder, like, at what point did English and all these super gendered languages become like that? I mean, surely that was a choice that was made at some point.
The book was What's Your Pronoun Beyond He and She by Dennis Barron. And it was actually pretty an interesting work. Highly would recommend.
Cool.
Most fitting neopronoun, also the German language does now gender nouns. It's actually gender neutralizing as in Schauspieler instead of Schauspieler and Schauspielerin. Yeah. So that it recognizes that there are more than two options without switching to the generic masculine form.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Huh.
I just like in Finnish as well. There is these there is a suffix that can be put behind a word that makes it more feminine, for which is tar. So when you have näyttelijä, which is an actor, then you would put näyttelijätär behind it, and then it becomes an actress. But nobody actually really uses those because it is just a given that the word actor is enough. So that is used across the board for like men and women and everyone. It's the same thing that like there is this idea that there is like policeman, but
Right.
nobody uses policeman or policewoman. It's just police.
Yeah.
So there are these interesting things where there are gendered words in the Finnish language, but like there is kind of an like aside from a few like differences, for example, like like a firefighter in Finnish is like palomies, which is like a fireman, and that doesn't really have like a genderless like term for it.
Yeah.
Which is
Well, I
like
think in English we do use the male version for everyone a lot. Like we say policeman and fireman and actor. And well, I mean, I think we say actress a lot, but there's a lot of words that we just default to the male version regardless.
yeah, I mean, I feel like, at least in my experience in like Finnish, the probably I don't feel like the male versions are actually male versions. I just feel like we just have a female version,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And those never get used. Like it's very old timey kind of.
Yeah.
Even things like the only things is like king and queen. Those are gendered. But then there are words like ruhtinas, which is like a lord or a ruler. And there's a gendered word for that as well, ruhtinatar, which is like feminine. But ruhtinas would work for men and women. So because there are no gendered articles or anything, and the pronouns are not gendered, so you can just kind of like pretty naturally opt out of using any gendered terms if you so choose. Like there are a few exceptions, but for them, like I would say like 90 to 95% you could just speak in an ungendered way in
Yeah.
Finnish, and it would not sound weird.
Yeah. I think it's similar in English. I mean, do you like it's similar in English, or do you think English more interdependent? I mean, do you feel like English is like, because I feel like English, aside from pronouns, English is like that. Like you could probably find a gender neutral way to say most things.
I mean, for me at least, I mean, I went on my whole like gender journey because of exposure to English. Because like I rarely encountered situations where people would like say like would identify me as a woman or a girl. So nobody really called me that girl or whatever. I was always like kind of just talked to as a person. And then when I started doing booktube and I started working in a company that's like our working language is English and stuff. So for the past like I would say 5 to 6 years, I have been like pretty immersed in like the English speaking like communities. And that's when it started to feel like really grating, and like I was in a sort of skin suit about 2 sizes too small for me, because like I was constantly gendered and put inside a box where I normally like didn't feel like I was.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really questioning it. And prior to that, I hadn't really had to question any of it, because like my life experience was kind of more fluid. And then sort of English put me in the box, if that
Huh.
makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. That's interesting that like it kind of hit you when you started speaking more English.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder like if the experience of like speaking English as your native language changes your experience of gender like growing up. Like you were able to grow up in a place that didn't force you to identify with a gender in a really strong way. But like I mean like I feel like personally I don't have a problem identifying as a woman or using she, her, whatever, but I do really strain against just kind of the expectations of what that means. I feel like womanhood does not encompass all that I am. I overflow the woman bucket, but
Yeah.
like at the same time, like I still feel like I am fully a woman. I kind of wonder if there's like how much language informs that perspective.
I mean, in my experience at least, I also like grew up in the experience of being in a very rural community. So my whole experience was that my worth was what I could contribute to my immediate community, and their gender really didn't matter that much, because like because I did the same work as, for example, my brother. But then again, it did matter in some other ways. For example, my mom was very conservative and like didn't let me play with computers and stuff when I was a kid, but would guide me to do more like girly stuff, which I really like. I sort of like struggled with that. And jokes on her because now I'm in IT and stuff. But um, but like there are moments and there are times when I would really like hit a wall with like how I was perceived. And especially as I got older, puberty and stuff like that. And also like, especially nowadays, because like, you're expected to have kids and stuff. And I started to really struggle. So there is a limit. Like language is one thing, but in a lot of the societies, the expectations are pretty gendered, whether you want it or not. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I have like similar experiences too. Like I remember, and well, it was my homeschool group because I didn't go to school, but they had all the girls sew a dress and all the boys build like woodworking stuff. I'm like, I really want to do the woodworking stuff. That seemed more fun, but I wasn't allowed, you know? And then I agree with this. I really,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at personally. Like I identify as female, but I really also don't care at all. Like pretty sure I'd be happy as a man too. Don't, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I feel like I used to be more gender indifferent than I am now.
Yeah.
So
Do you, you feel less indifferent now?
yeah, I would say so. I feel like probably after I am more comfortable with how I express myself, I will probably start wearing towards the indifference again.
Yeah.
But like right now, it's still about like finding my like what
Your happy
I'm
place.
yeah, like where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's complicated.
I mean, the first step is like this is probably one of the first times where I've been like publicly talking about it, even.
Oh, I'm
So it's
honored.
like no
I get
need,
to
but like
hear.
it's like so that's probably like first step as well.
Yeah.
Also, it's getting midnight over here almost.
Yeah.
So I think now is a good time to wrap it up. But I really like this discussion because I really love linguistics and like sociology. I know how to say words.
I love sociology. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's very interesting. Yeah. But yeah, this has been a fun discussion. Thank you for co-hosting with me.
Yeah. And I think next week on the 20th
That sounds
is
right.
the next live show.
Yeah. I forget who's hosting it, but
It's either going to be me or Rachel because it's the two of us are hosting it. We still need to figure out who will do it. It's probably me if I get my internet sorted, but Rachel if I won't get my internet sorted. Rachel says she's the one hosting, so okay, Rachel
okay.
is hosting. Good.
Thank you, Rachel. So everybody head over to Rachel's channel next week, and I will like definitely in my weekly wrap up, I will have all the deets. So
And also we will probably retweet when that time comes.
yeah, I try to do social media. So
Okay.
all right.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.